Okay, so in the lead up to the 2008 Paralympics, Canada were in phenomenal form as you'd won the previous World Championships. No, sorry, the previous Paralympics, and then the previous World Championships before Beijing. You went on to lose the final to Australia that year. What did you take away from that setback?
Yeah, that's a bit of a messy one, both leading in and coming out of it. So there's, you know, a lot that we could unpack there, but what would I take away from that? Yeah, Beijing's sort of a strange memory in my mind. I mean, the first thing that's like only fair to say is that I think Australia was just like the best team there and the hungriest, and that might have been their peak, you know, like Troy had a magnificent final because, you know, coming off the bench, you know, Justin was fully formed, and Dylan Alcock, you know, was, you know, a difference maker for them in that position. So anyway, they did great and played great, especially in the final. Yeah, I had sort of, you know, my career can be broken into like before and after World Championships in 06. Something sort of changed for me after 06, and I took a year off from the national team. I got a little chair made. I went to music school. I moved from Germany to Vancouver. You know, there was just a lot of change, and I was just sort of searching for something, and that's sort of a long story of its own, but so coming into Beijing, I was just, I don't know, I was just in a time of transition in my life, personally and as far as basketball is concerned. And so a few months before Beijing, I went back to my big chair because I felt like, I got to play big. And to be honest, like leading into Beijing, it was the U.S. that we were struggling against, particularly in my little chair. We just couldn't crack the code against them, and they were, you know, like that's when, they were just playing at a really high level, and you know, Serial was coming along.
Yeah, that was the year he made his Paralympic debut.
Yeah, so he was on the horizon and coming up, and Joe Chambers was like, you know, when he's hitting, kind of unstoppable force, and so we kept losing to them. We kept beating the Aussies. On the other hand, this is like leading into Beijing, so so it led to a sort of a very epic, at least from our point of view. And I've talked to my dad or my uncle, like they would tell you, like that was the most memorable game they ever saw. And they went to every Paralympics except for Tokyo, of course, but it was their semifinal in Beijing against the U.S. We came back from 20 down and beat them in overtime, and like, yeah, we won, but we hadn't won. We only won the semifinal, but it felt like we had because they were the hump we couldn't get over, and we beat them. But then 2 days later, we had to turn around and finish the job against the Aussies, and we're, I guess, a little bit like, oh no, we didn't. Obviously, we were prepared. Of course, we had this long rivalry with them, and so we knew what they could do. But somehow, we just weren't up for the challenge. And maybe they're just, you know, they certainly played better on the day. Maybe they're just the better team at that point. But in any case, I was coming out of that. I was like, I'm done. That's too emotionally draining. I was bitter about the loss, and I was bitter that I was trying to like learn how to play jazz guitar, which is terribly impossible. At the same time, trying to like, you know, play you know, Paralympic basketball, and I felt pulled in different directions and sort of resented basketball for that reason. It's all got kind of complicated for me. So coming out of that, I really thought I was done. I was like, that was a good run. That was fun. I want to go make music and enjoy life. So yeah, I came out of Beijing sort of feeling like that was it, but I guess that wasn't it.
And I want to talk to you a bit more about that, in depth about that semi-final against the US, because I remember the first time I spoke to Mike Frogley, and it was the first ever time I'd met him, and I asked him about Beijing. So we got on to talking about Beijing, and he told me about the semi-final game against the US, and it's a game that I've always tried to find online. I can't find any footage of it. So, what are some of your memories of that game?
Well, I remember just they just blitzed us early on. We were down 20 or something, and we got to that point where we're like, okay, like we have nothing to lose here. Like we just have to go for it. And in a way, it was the best thing that could happen to us because it took like the pressure off. Because there was no time to feel nervous about whether I was going to hit the shot or not. Just like had to go do it, or else we were going to be done, like dead in the water. on the flip side, you know, I've been in games like that where you get up early and then you get into like protect the lead mode, and it can be hard to keep playing aggressively and free when you're up big, and that might have set in a little bit for them. I don't know, but yeah, I just remember, you know, Dave Durapo. I remember he came in the lineup for a little bit, and we had a play where we connected, sort of bang bang on a steal, and he hit me, and I hit something at kind of a weird angle, and that the fluidity and confidence and like we're coming back. I felt it in that play, in that moment. I can still kind of feel it almost in my veins, you know, like what it felt like to kind of go bang, bang, and like, well, no, we're here, we're coming back, things are flowing, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, I mean, the other memorable moment was we were down 3. I had a 3 with, I don't know, 12 seconds left or something to tie the game, and I remember feeling, I had a sense that, like, I'm going to be done, I think, after this tournament anyway, so I was, like, very trying to just soak in the moment or something like that, as opposed to like celebrating, because obviously the game wasn't over yet, but it just felt like such a big moment that I wanted to sort of enjoy it. And then they came down and had a shot to win it, like really could have been over just like that, but they missed and we went into overtime. And so I just I remember trying to shoot something like backwards over my head, it got blocked. Like it just is a little bit of a blur, like it was such a kind of wild game, and really could have gone either way. They missed a ton of free throws. So in some ways we took it back, in other ways we probably could have finished this off, you know, regardless of how well we played after we got down that much. So yeah, it was both a sort of high point and also like just sort of the you know, Beijing was a high